During my absence from the temple, I have missed you all, but I have accomplished much writing. That is my joy, for through my pen, I can give to you what God gives to me. Seclusion is the price of finding God. Sometimes I am more with you in God when I am away than when I am with you personally. During this period of seclusion, I have been immersed in the wondrous dynamic presence of God. My whole room was ablaze with His being. You don't know how thrilling night is when you are alone and practice His presence. He is omnipresent, moving in space as a great auroral mist, the light out of which all things are formed. You must make the effort to experience Him yourself. How to free yourself from bad habits. Extracts from lectures by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1947. Saint Francis taught simple devotion, but as his monks became more and more organized, they felt it necessary not only to cultivate devotion to commune with God, but to study theological books and to acquaint themselves with the arts and sciences of the time. Saint Francis warned them repeatedly that studying would not get them to God, that they must rather have love for Him. God can never be found through philosophical abstractions. If you have love for God and practice kriya yoga and meditate deeply, you will find Him. Don't wait, for waiting is dangerous. Present good health may produce in your consciousness a happy complacency. But who knows whether or not your head may be on the block waiting for death? Krishna said, "Get away from this ocean of suffering and misery." He meant that we must go where we can find real happiness. It can be had only from God's hands. But the greatest obstacle in our path is our bad habits. Habit is both our best friend and our worst enemy. And that is the theme of this morning's service. Habit defined. Habit is an acquired aptitude or inclination to a particular action, instilled by repetition. It can decrease or resist or facilitate the force of action. The mental mechanism of habit was given to us to simplify the process of our actions. Without its aid, we would have to learn the same things over each new day. For instance, the writer works daily at his writing until he is able to express his thoughts clearly and interestingly. If that habit were not established, he would have to relearn repeatedly the basics of composition. Similarly, if you had no such power of habit, then every day of your life you would have to relearn everything you do, even how to say your name. In other words, you would remain like a helpless infant. Habits are necessary, but we misuse their power. Habit is like a parrot. If you teach it to sing good songs and say good words, it will repeat them over and over. And if you teach it to swear, it will do the same, whether you want it to or not, embarrassing you and others. Likewise, your bad habits will make not only you, but everyone around you uncomfortable, whereas your good habits will be a joy to you and to others also. Therefore, it is tenable that you should prefer good habits and destroy bad ones. Habits are formed gradually by repetition of an action. It is said that it normally takes the average person about 8 years to firmly establish a habit. But habit formation can be quickened. In childhood, especially, the mind is more pliable, and it is then easier to form good habits. However, in ancient India, our teachers who specialized in training the young knew the importance of understanding the predisposition of the child's nature, in addition to providing proper education and environment. They selected children according to the good karma and habits they brought with them from past incarnations. You have probably seen some children who from the earliest age were absolutely unwilling to be good. This is because they had developed bad habits in previous lives. On the other hand, many children are naturally inclined to right behavior because of good tendencies developed in former incarnations. Older people reflect the inner influence of past life habits just as children do. When persons who were spiritually inclined in the past take up the spiritual path, they keep on going with youthful enthusiasm to the end. Others who have brought with them anti-spiritual habits will not take to the spiritual path in spite of repeated urgings, unless in this life they wake up and begin to realize that God is the only source of happiness. Watch out for hidden bad habits of past lives. Since you do not know what good or bad habits you have established in previous lives, you should be careful about what you do in this life, lest the slightest stimulus give a fresh hold to some bad habit that has been trailing you through incarnations. This explains how it can happen that a person may take just one drink and his old habit of former lives awakens and catches him. Before long, he has become an alcoholic. Therefore, one shouldn't even try such experiences as those produced by alcohol and drugs, which are not only useless, but potentially harmful. Don't flirt with unproductive, dangerous habits. The word karma means action, also the effects of actions. The nature of those effects determines whether you have reaped good or bad karma. When you say, "It is my karma that has brought this evil event upon me," you have not distinguished between good and evil karma. Good karma brings good results and predisposes one to repeat good actions. Evil karma produces evil results and is the fertile soil for more evil actions. If you have a particular bad habit or karmic inclination, don't mix with those who have the same kind of bad habit. If you tend to be greedy, avoid the company of others who are greedy. If you have a desire to drink, stay away from those who drink. People who support your bad habits are not your friends. They will cause you to throw away your soul's joy. Avoid the company of wrongdoers and mix with those who are good. Train children to develop a preference for right habits. In this modern age, everybody needs to be trained because they have so much temptation placed before them. All parents should train their children to develop a taste for better habits. Consider more seriously the responsibility of guiding your children. Many bad habits are imposed on them in the environment of the schools. Influenced by other children, they feel they have no choice. If someone doesn't join the crowd and smoke or drink, he is considered a sissy. Youngsters thus succumb to all kinds of wrong behavior. I know so many boys and girls who have taken to drink and smoking and even worse. Those young children that I have taken into the ashram for training, I consider my own, and my heart goes out with them when they go into the environment of the public school. I tell them, don't be a doormat. Dare to be different and to say no when others try to persuade you into wrong ways. Co-education is a total failure. You will learn this sometime. Co-education for college-age students is less questionable. I was once going to write about these things, and then I thought, why should I? Who will pay any attention? The very fabric of your family life is being destroyed because of the lack of moral and spiritual education at home, as well as in the schools. You must do your part to teach your children to resist evil. You have here such a great nation, but the abuse of freedom is the road to destruction. When I was a child in India, we were given strict moral and spiritual culture at home. Mother used to tell me, never desire wealth. I asked why, and she said, it will make you a slave. We were never permitted even to utter the word wine, because drinking was recognized as an evil habit. Reason with your children. Remind them that by developing wrong habits, they are wading into the cesspool of error. If they should go on in that way, it will be too late for them to come out of it. All the joy of life will be over for them. I know a young couple who were married just 4 weeks ago, and already they are unhappy and coming to me for advice. It isn't academic education alone that makes people happy. It is how to live education, how to develop a harmonious moral life, stronger willpower, and spiritual understanding that will bring happiness. The women in this country have much devotion and spiritual inclination, but as mothers, few of them properly trained those ideals into their children. The boys here would be wonderful if taught how to develop their won't power. When you say no to temptation, mean it. When you say no to temptation, you must mean no. Don't give in. The spineless weakling all the time says yes, but great minds are full of no's. The weak-willed become doormats for everybody to walk over and trample on. They deserve this treatment for giving in to their weakness. Remember, temptation may appear to offer something very pleasurable in the beginning, but it leads to restlessness, always seeking something different, always seeking new thrills. Resisting temptations isn't the denial of all the pleasures of life. It is to have supernal control over what you want to do. I am showing you the way to real freedom, not the false sense of freedom that is in fact compelling you to do what your habits lead you to do. Don't cater to likes and dislikes. Catering to your likes and dislikes is also to be avoided. They too are cultivated habits. When I came to this country and tasted olives for the first time, I didn't like them. But everyone was saying how good they were, so I ate them until I also learned to like them. To follow what you should do, irrespective of likes and dislikes, is what brings lasting happiness. Many times, we dislike certain things that we should like because they are good for us. This is particularly true of our eating habits. If you mix sand and water and then plaster a wall with it, the mixture will stay put for a while. But when the water dries, the sand will fall away from the wall. In the same way, what pleases your taste does not always satisfy the needs of your body. If you could actually see its complex workings and how it is affected by what you feed it, you would not down coffee and donuts every morning as a substitute for a balanced breakfast. Most people are heavy meat eaters and neglect fresh fruits and vegetables in their diet. As a result, their kidneys and intestines are affected, and all kinds of troubles develop. Meat is not an essential to health. In fact, it is harmful. The cow is supplied with all its nourishments merely by eating grass. The elephant and the horse get their strength and stamina from a vegetarian diet. Why do intelligent human beings cultivate such bad eating habits? Why do you persist in wrong eating, even when you know better? Because you were not started out with the right habits. No matter what anyone says, you want to eat the wrong things because the habit of liking those foods has been established. That is the misuse of the power of habit. If from the beginning you form the habit of eating the right foods, you won't crave white bread and lots of sugars and starches and fried foods. You won't be used to them. Bad habits are like an octopus. They have many tentacles to hold you in their grip, and once they enwrap you, those octopus-like habits feed on you. They will destroy you. But if good habits have a hold on you, they will nourish you. Don't at all let your mind tell you that it is so hard to be good and so easy to be bad. It is much easier to be good than to suffer the consequences of wrong actions. It is a little difficult sometimes to resist temptation, because your senses try to entrap you. But once you get into the habit of being good, it is very hard to be bad, because you know you will be beaten up within and without by doing something you know is wrong. You are under the influence and in the grip of bad habits. For instance, if you have ulcers of the stomach and through habit continue to eat meat or hot or fried foods, which further irritate the stomach and take away the scabs formed by nature to heal the ulcers, the ulcerated condition will worsen and may develop into cancer or a hemorrhage. Rather, you should eat pureed and soft foods and other food that do not irritate the stomach lining. Why let habit make you eat those things you know will harm you? Just as crime doesn't pay, so bad habits don't pay, because they will destroy your health and happiness and peace of mind. And they will also set a bad example for those you love. You must strive to conquer harmful habits now. Don't be a weakling. Stay away from the things that stimulate your bad habits, and always choose good substitutes that will bring you peace of mind and a sound, healthy body. Temptations are charming and strong, but you are stronger because the image of God is within you. No matter how many times you fall, you can rise again. But when you admit defeat, then you are lost. And lost is your peace and happiness. Train your will to be unenslaved. Saint Ignatius of Loyola was called the saint of willpower. He was not satisfied to wait for the grace of God to descend. He trained his will so that he could commune with God at any time. He said, "I can find God at all times, whenever I wish, and any man of good will can do the same. As the body can be exercised by going, walking, and running, so the will of man can be trained by exercises to find the will of God." That is what I believe. To train your will, to have complete mastery over your will, so that you can do the things you ought to do, with the will unbound by bad habits. One should have freedom even to cut his own throat if he wants to. But he certainly should not use his freedom, his free will, to do any such thing. It seems, however, that in the name of freedom, it is human nature to want to do the very things that are not good for us. Tell the self-willed person to do something that is good for him, and he will want to do exactly the opposite. People who behave in this way are childish and immature. When one is ripe with wisdom, then he is a truly mature human being. Age has nothing to do with it. A slave is a slave. No matter how he tries, he can't do without the thing he is a slave to. Never allow yourself to be enslaved by anything. You have all the willpower in the world to break any habit. The power of divine will is always with you and can never be destroyed. But you allow it to be eclipsed by your bad habits and other wrong influences. When you make up your mind to do or not to do something, never give in. Unless you see you are wrong, then quickly change your mind. Otherwise, don't give up, because weakening of the will takes away your most valuable treasure. Persons you associate with may want you to be like them, but it is you, not they, who will have to bear the consequences of what you are. There's a story about the fox that lost its tail in a trap. He called a meeting of the other foxes and told them how wonderful it was to be rid of the tail. But one wise old fox got up and said, "Mr. Fox without a tail, would you advise us to cut off our tails if you still had your own?" All the other foxes then saw the trick. The moral is that if others want you to take on their bad habits, just say no. For example, if anybody wants you to drink because he likes to drink, be firm. No, thank you. I'm very happy and having a good time without it. There is no real fun in being drunk and behaving like a fool, and not even remembering, when you are sober again, how badly you behaved. Besides, drink can destroy forever your nerves, your peace of mind, and your happiness. So never let anyone weaken your will. Others will test you, but when you have made a resolve, keep your word. Above all, keep your word with yourself. If you find that you are unreasonable, that is different. Then you must be able to change at once and do that which is right. A story of won't power. When I like a particular food, I eat it until I decide to give it up. I don't create a dislike for it. I just leave it alone. For instance, as a child in India, I used to like very much a small vegetable called patol. I would eat it morning, noon, and night. One of my friends said, "Don't you get tired of it?" "No," I responded. "When I like it, I like it." He said, "Then you are a slave to it." I thought, maybe he is right. So I vowed that I would not touch it for 1 year, and I didn't. You must develop that mullish won't power by which you will not budge no matter how you are urged. Some months after I had made that resolution, my friend invited me and other friends to dinner. Patols were served. I ate everything except that vegetable. My friend said, "We are sorry that you won't eat it." I replied, "First of all, you decided to test me. For me to give in and weaken my will would be foolishness. And secondly, I have said I will not touch this food for 365 days. And as a result, I have no taste for it. I enjoyed patols before, but now the wish for them is gone." Remember, you must get rid of every habit that enslaves you, and don't associate with those who, in the guise of friendship, work with Satan to delude your will. Those friends who inspire you are your guardian angels. Those who love God are your protectors. If you want to be an artist, you should mix with artists. If you would love God, associate with those who love Him. By concentration, habits can be installed at will. As weak-minded people can fall into bad habits easily, so strong-minded persons can learn to create habits at will. How? By concentration. I will give you an illustration. Years ago in Boston, I was invited to someone's home for dinner. I was enjoying the meal very much until Roquefort cheese was served. I was very suspicious of those dark spots in the cheese, but I saw that everyone else was eating and enjoying it. I took some cheese in my mouth, and suddenly my stomach turned, and all the contents inside said, "If you let Mr. Roquefort in, all of us will rush out at once." I was gagging, but I said mentally, "Be quiet. I am the boss." One of the guests looked at me and said, "What is the matter?" I didn't dare to open my mouth. I watched everyone else enjoying the cheese, and I said to myself, I command my mind to establish immediately the habit of eating Roquefort cheese. And I found that I was eating and enjoying it. To this day, I am very fond of Roquefort cheese. Later, someone suggested that I install the habit of eating Limburger cheese. But I said, nothing doing. I didn't see any reason to inflict its awful smell on myself and others. Introspect to know yourself as you are. Be more serious about your life. Every night, introspect to see whether you are being swept down the current of bad habits or whether you are developing your willpower and won't power in order to be master of yourself. Saint Ignatius had a wonderful method. He taught his monks to keep a daily record of all their good and bad actions by making a graph of dots and dashes. Many who never thought they could overcome their bad habits were helped by his suggestion. By watching the graphs of your mind, you can see whether you are progressing every day. You don't want to hide from yourself. You must know yourself as you are. By keeping a diary of your introspection, you keep watch on your bad habits and are better prepared to destroy them. But no matter how you have sinned in the past, never call yourself a sinner, because that is the greatest sin against the image of God within you. It is better that you always affirm to yourself that you are a child of God, because that is what you are. As soon as you say you are a sinner, your mind accepts that decree. The will gives up, and you are done for. God seeks willing hearts who want to be free. And if you are willing, all the years of your past errors will not stop you from getting back to Him. Perennial peace and joy lie within, not in externals. As a child of God, your real nature is to be happy. You will never be satisfied with anything less than true happiness, and it will not depend on anything outside yourself. Drink and dope will give you the false notion that you are having a good time, while they are actually destroying your body and mind and stifling the soul. The scripture tells us that on the day of Pentecost, the disciples of Christ were all drunk. They were drunk not with the alcohol of wine, but the ecstasy of God. It is this divine ecstasy, this divine happiness that your soul is seeking. You spend so much time in decorating your homes or working to buy a new car, and that is all right. But you must be able to renounce all things inwardly. Why? Because it gives freedom from enslavement to possessions. Just think about that. You bemoan not having what others have. You don't know what it is to be free. The contrast of happiness within your soul outbalances all the pleasure that you can get from your senses. So don't spend too much time seeking and caring for possessions. Yes, it is good to be neat, but don't be overly fastidious. After you have cleaned things, they are soon dirty again. Be spotless within. Make your inner self a temple of God. Make it a temple of the mystic life of the universe. Then you are king of everything and not attached to anything. That inner renunciation is the greatest way, greater than merely following the path of outer renunciation, undergoing forced discipline with the inner self still attached to the body and possessions. Change your heart, for therein you can make an altar either for the devil of misery or for the Heavenly Father. Perennial peace lies within, not in outer possessions and conditions. God alone is sufficient, for in Him lies all love, all life, all happiness, all joy, all peace. Everything that even in your wildest dreams you cannot imagine. Cultivate a relationship with Him. Practice the presence of God every day and never go to bed at night until you have practiced your kriya and are filled with that joy. Have that eternal peace within and without, and whoever comes to you shall feel your peace and be uplifted by it. You don't want to be a human skunk, driving away by your obnoxious behavior, your bad habits, whoever comes into your presence. You want to be a human rose, a flower of bliss, a bird of paradise. As soon as God touches you, all the fragrance of every flower is manifest within you. All the goodness and purity of God is within you. That is why it was said of Jesus, "Never man spake like this man." You cannot fathom the real nature of those who know God because they are depthless. My Gurudeva Swami Sri Yukteswar was like that. He was apart from everything else. The teaching of being united with God and thereby non-attached to everything else is yoga. The time to create spiritual habits is now. Since it may take 8 years to form a habit, if you want to be spiritual, you must begin to cultivate the right habits now. All of your life you have been restless for things of the world. You sit to meditate and you become more restless. Then you say, "There is no use in meditating," but that is foolish reasoning. You have to live those 8 years anyway, so why not use that time to perfect your practice of meditation? The more concentration you put into it, the sooner you will develop that habit. Your mind will then be saturated with the habit of silence. And when that habit is formed, you will feel restless, not for the world, but for God. No matter what your work or responsibilities, you must keep your most important engagement, with God in meditation. For all things will betray you if you betray him. That is why I never miss my appointment with him, especially at night. Don't go to bed until you feel that joy of God within and without. Then all day long he will be with you. Nothing can match that joy. Develop the habit of communion with that great joy which is beyond the state of sleep. Deep, dreamless sleep is an unconscious way of contacting the peace and joy of God, and meditation is the conscious way. The satisfaction of 10 million sleeps does not begin to describe the bliss you feel in conscious communion with God. Remain in that blissful calmness within your soul. When all things worldly and all secular concerns completely vanish and dissolve in the light of spirit, then you shall see him. Don't wait until later to change your habits. Procrastination fosters more bad habits until the will is a prisoner, and you think you can't change. Don't allow yourself to reach that state. So long as you are willing, God will help you. Technique for creating and destroying habits. When you want to create a good habit or destroy a bad one, concentrate on the brain cells, the storehouse of the mechanisms of habits. To create a good habit, meditate, and then with the concentration fixed at the Christ center, the center of will between the eyebrows, deeply affirm the good habit that you want to instill. And when you want to destroy bad habits, concentrate at the Christ center and deeply affirm that all the grooves of bad habits are being erased. I will tell you a true story of the effectiveness of this technique. In India, a man who had a bad temper came to me. He was a specialist in slapping his bosses when he lost his temper. So he also lost one job after another. He would become so uncontrollably irate that he would throw at whoever bothered him anything that was handy. He asked me for help. I told him, the next time you get angry, count to 100 before you act. He tried it, but came back to me and said, I get more angry when I do that. While I'm counting, I am blind with rage for having to wait so long. His case looked hopeless. Then I told him to practice Kriya Yoga. With this further instruction, after practicing your Kriya, think that the divine light is going into your brain, soothing it, calming your nerves, calming your emotions, wiping away all anger. And one day, your temper tantrums will be gone. Not long after that, he came to me again, and this time he said, I am free from the habit of anger. I am so thankful. I decided to test him. I arranged for some boys to pick a quarrel with him. I hid myself in the park along the route where he used to pass regularly, so that I could observe. The boys tried again and again to goad him into a fight, but he wouldn't respond. He kept his calmness. Make-believe pleasures cannot substitute for the bliss of God. You should wish for 1,000 million deaths rather than enmesh yourself in bad habits from which you cannot free yourself. Money, sex, and wine were created as make-believe pleasures. They could never substitute for the bliss of God. Even if you do no more than pray sincerely to Him, His great joy will eventually come upon you. Naturally, God wants to test you with the taste of temptation and the lure of your bad habits to see if you really want Him more than the enticing pseudo-pleasures of the body. If you give in, you will get nowhere. If you keep pouring water into a pot, you cannot accept the pot to dry out. You must dry up the water of bad habits in the sun of good company, wholesome activity, introspection, and willpower, and above all, meditation and God communion. No one can help you unless you are willing to help yourself. As I said, if you are willing, then God Himself will help you. When Jesus prayed to the Heavenly Father, "Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil," He meant, leave us not in the pit of temptation wherein we fell through the misuse of Thy gift of reason. Temptation cannot lead us unless we misuse our God-given reason. If once you taste the sweetness of God in meditation, you shall not be touched by temptation anymore. You will throw off your bad habits and go after Him. If you truly seek God, you will find Him. Excerpts from the book The Divine Romance by Paramahansa Yogananda.